We're counting down the 10 UK cat food brands every owner should steer clear of, ranked from formulas packed with cheap cereals to infamous labels hiding behind flashy packaging. From supermarket favourites with shockingly low meat content to household names loaded with artificial flavours, this list exposes the most misleading options crowding British shelves, plus a few genuinely safer choices for your cat. Which brand falls short right from the ingredient list, and which avoidable mistakes might be hiding in your own kitchen? Let's kick off the countdown with number 10. Whiskas is a name you see in nearly every UK supermarket, but its ingredient list tells a different story than the cheerful branding. Flip over a typical bag of Whiskas dry food, and cereals are the very first ingredient, outweighing any real meat. Instead of clear cuts of chicken or fish, most recipes rely on the vague term meat and animal derivatives, with only 4% of the mix guaranteed to be the named meat shown on the front of the pack. That 4% is not just a Whiskas quirk, it is a legal minimum under UK and EU rules, allowing brands to highlight a flavour even if the actual meat content is tiny. Colorants and flavourings are standard too, giving the kibble its bright look and strong scent, but offering nothing nutritionally for cats. For anyone scanning the shelves, that cereal's first 4% meat formula is the first red flag. Whiskas might be the least bad on this avoid list, but it still fails the meat first test, and it sets a low bar for what is to come. Felix is a name that carries weight on UK shelves, but its recent reputation tells a cautionary tale. Between 2019 and 2021, cat owners flooded review sites with stories of sudden food refusals and, in some cases, bouts of vomiting or upset stomachs. The common thread was not just picky cats, it was a pattern that lined up with whispers of recipe or batch changes. One week, a case of Felix pouches would be devoured. The next week, the same flavour would be left untouched. Some reviewers even documented switching to another brand after their cats turned away from a new box, suggesting something had shifted behind the scenes. The product label offers little clarity. The ingredient description begins with meat and animal derivatives, with only 4% of the name meat, and cereals and vegetable protein extracts fill out the bulk. Flavourings and colorants are standard, propping up taste and appearance. For shoppers, it is not just what is in Felix, it is whether you can trust what is in the next batch. GoCat lands at number 8, and the label makes its priorities clear. The first ingredient is cereals, not real meat. Right after that, instead of whole chicken or fish, you will see vegetable protein extracts, a catch-all term for plant-based proteins like soy, maize, and wheat. These ingredients keep costs down but dilute the kind of animal protein cats actually need. For a species built to thrive on meat, swapping in corn and soy as protein sources is a shortcut that does not pass the quality test. Across online reviews, one complaint comes up again and again. Owners report a strong, unmistakably artificial smell the moment they open the bag. Many describe it as chemical or overpowering, which points to heavy scenting agents and flavour enhancers. GoCat's formulas are built on plant proteins and cereals with only a small fraction of named meat. When it comes to protein quality, this is a textbook example of quantity over substance. There may be lots of protein on paper, but it is not the kind cats are wired to digest. That is why GoCat edges ahead of Felix on this list. It is not just about low meat, it's about how much of that protein comes from plants instead of animals. Asda Tiger is the kind of cat food you will find stacked high on the lower shelves, with a price tag that is hard to beat. But that bargain bin appeal comes at a cost. Flip the bag over, and the first word you will spot on the ingredient list is cereals. Not chicken, not fish, just generic grains making up the bulk of the recipe. The next few ingredients do not offer much improvement. Meat and animal derivatives follows, but there is no clear sign of how much actual meat is inside or what kind. The 4% rule applies here too, meaning only a sliver of the named meat flavour is guaranteed. The rest of the list reads like a supermarket sweep of the cheapest fillers, vegetable protein extracts, oils and fats, and the usual round of colorants and flavourings. Asda Tiger often claims the lowest per kilo price of any major UK cat food, and that is no accident. The heavy reliance on cereals keeps costs down, But it also means cats are getting more carbs and fewer animal proteins than they need. For pet owners drawn in by the price, it is easy to miss how little real nutrition is on offer. When value means cereals first and meat as an afterthought, it is a classic case of getting what you pay for, and in this case, it is mostly grains. Tesco Complete sits squarely in the middle of the supermarket cat food aisle, but its ingredient list tells a familiar story. Cereals take the top spot, making up the bulk of the recipe before any animal-based protein even enters the picture. The packaging might hint at balanced nutrition, but a closer look at the pack panel reveals a different reality. Protein hovers just under 31%, often dipping as low as 28%, depending on the batch and the product variant. That number might sound reasonable until you realize much of it comes from grains and plant sources, not animal meat. Tesco frequently tweaks its formulas, swapping in new grain blends or shifting the order of ingredients, but the underlying pattern remains. It is heavy processing and a carb-heavy base. Extrusion, the high heat method used to form most dry kibble, further strips away what little natural nutrition is left. For shoppers comparing price tags, Tesco Complete often costs more than the absolute budget brands, yet delivers a similar cereal-first formula with moderate protein and limited real meat. The difference between what is promised on the front and what is actually inside is a lesson in reading past the marketing and straight into the ingredients list. Sainsbury's Complete lands at number 5, and for good reason. It is not just the usual cereal-heavy formula that raises eyebrows, but a documented safety scare that put thousands of cats at risk. In the summer of 2021, Sainsbury's issued a voluntary recall on several batches of its dry cat food after the Royal Veterinary College and the Food Standards Agency linked a spike in fatal feline pancytopenia cases to certain products. The investigation pointed to mycotoxin contamination, dangerous toxins produced by molds in grains like corn, highlighting a hidden risk when cereals make up the backbone of a cat's diet. While the exact cause was never fully pinned down, the recall swept up Sainsbury's Pets at Home and Applaws dry foods, all produced at the same facility. Today, Sainsbury's Complete still lists cereals as its main ingredient, backed by meat and animal derivatives, and a shortfall of clearly named meats. That 2021 recall stands as a stark reminder. When dry cat food relies on cheap grains, it is not just about low nutrition, it is about safety too. Morrison Savers lands at number 4. The reason is impossible to miss the moment you open the bag. Owners repeatedly describe the smell as chemical or overpowering, a sharp synthetic aroma that lingers in the air and clings to your hands. That scent is not just a quirk, it is the result of a formula built on cereals and animal byproducts, with added flavorings and fat sprays designed to boost palatability. Flip the pack, and you will spot the word flavorings listed among the additives right alongside the usual colorants and preservatives. For many cats, these boosters might make the kibble more tempting, but for anyone reading the label, it is a warning sign. The heavy reliance on artificial flavors is a classic red flag in budget cat food. When real meat is scarce and the base is mostly grain, brands turn to chemistry to fill the gap. Review after review calls out the same thing: an unnatural, pungent smell that signals how far removed this food is from anything fresh or meaty. In the world of supermarket own-label cat food, Morrison Savers stands out not for nutrition, but for how obviously it leans on additives to mask what is missing. Co-op Complete cracks the top 3. The reason sits right on the front of the pack. Cereals first, then vegetable protein extracts, before you even reach any hint of real meat. The ingredient list reads like a checklist for cost-cutting. Grains bulk out the recipe, and plant-based proteins step in where animal meat should lead. Instead of muscle meat, you get a mix of wheat, maize, and soy isolates, all pressed and puffed through extrusion to create a kibble that looks the part but falls short on substance. The result is a dry food with a texture some owners describe as airy or even spongy. That texture is a side effect of using plant proteins as binders to hold the biscuit shape. This engineering lets Co-op keep the recipe cheap and the protein number up on paper, at least. But for cats who are built to get their protein from meat, That high number means less than it seems. Reviews often mention cats leaving bits behind or picking at the bowl, and the texture gets as many complaints as the taste. With real meat so far down the list and vegetable proteins doing the heavy lifting, Co-op Complete lands high on this avoid list, not just for what it leaves out, but for how cleverly it disguises it. Wilco cat food stands out in the discount aisle, but not for the right reasons. The label does not hide what is inside. Wheat and maize are the first two ingredients, spelled out clearly instead of hiding behind the usual cereals catch-all. For cats who need animal protein above all else, this means each bowl is built on bulk grain, not meat. That's a critical difference because most budget brands use vague terms, and Wilco's formula is upfront about its reliance on wheat and corn as the main components. The protein percentage hovers around 27%, but much of that comes from plants, not animals, so the nutritional value is not what the number suggests. To make the food more tempting, Wilco adds a mix of flavorings and palatability enhancers. These additives are listed right on the pack, signaling that without them, cats might not touch the kibble at all. The result is a dry food that is heavy on grain, low on real meat, and dependent on synthetic flavors to pass the taste test. For shoppers drawn in by the price, the real cost is a diet loaded with fillers and artificial boosters, and it is just one step away from the very bottom of the list. Harrington's Dry often gets a nod from budget-conscious cat owners, with marketing that leans heavily on the word natural and a price tag that undercuts many premium brands. On the surface, it looks like a smart compromise, especially compared to supermarket savers lining the shelves. The ingredient list seems to offer more, chicken meal appears high up, and the packaging steers clear of flashy artificial colors. But a closer look at the numbers tells a different story. The protein percentage, while higher than some rivals, lands at 30%, just shy of the 35% target that nutritionists say is ideal for a truly meat-rich dry food. That gap matters because cats are obligate carnivores, built to thrive on animal protein, not grains. Cereals and rice still take up significant space in the recipe, often listed ahead of meat on the back panel. This means that while Harrington's avoids some of the worst pitfalls, like excessive artificial additives or rock-bottom meat content, it still leans on carbohydrates to fill out each bowl. For cats, that translates to more energy from starches and less from the animal protein their bodies are designed to use. The carbohydrate load may not be as glaring as in the cheapest supermarket lines, but it is enough to keep this food out of the green zone for daily, long-term feeding. Harrington's place at the top of this avoid list is not about hidden dangers or recalls. It is about expectations. Many owners see it as a value hero, but under a stricter high-meat standard, it simply does not deliver. The brand's 30% protein and cereal forward formula make it better than the worst, but not good enough to break into the ranks of truly safe meat-first options. For anyone aiming to feed their cat like a true carnivore, Harrington's is a step up from the bottom, but still a step short of where it counts. Lily's Kitchen stands out the moment you read the label. Instead of cereals or vague animal derivatives, the first ingredient is a named meat, fresh chicken or turkey, depending on the recipe. That means what is in the bowl matches what is promised on the front, not just a token 4% for show. The rest of the ingredient list is refreshingly short: sweet potato, carrots, a dash of salmon oil, and essential minerals. There is no sign of artificial colorants, no flavor enhancers, and no mystery fillers hiding in the fine print. Protein levels hover around 30%, and here the bulk of that protein comes straight from real meat, not plant extracts or grain. For cats, that is a big nutritional upgrade. This is the kind of panel that lands squarely in the green zone: simple, transparent, and built around animal protein. The catch? Lily's Kitchen is a premium buy, so it will not fit every budget. But for owners looking to feed their cats a diet closer to what nature intended, it is a clear step above the supermarket crowd. Applaws wet cat food earns its spot as a standout for one simple reason: what you see on the tin is exactly what your cat gets. Flip the label, and there is no long list of fillers, no mystery additives, just a handful of honest ingredients. The classic tuna or chicken varieties pack in a remarkable 75% real meat, followed by broth and a touch of rice, nothing more. That is a world away from the cereal-heavy, colorant-laden recipes that dominate most supermarket shelves. There are no artificial colors, no flavor enhancers, and no vague meat derivatives. It is a meat-heavy option that lets the quality of the protein do all the talking. But there is a catch. Applaws Wet is labeled as a complementary food, not a complete diet. That means it delivers outstanding meat content, but needs to be paired with a balanced complete food to cover all nutritional bases. For owners searching for a wet food that is as close to pure meat as possible, Applaws Wet sets the gold standard. Just remember to mix it in and not rely on it alone. James Wellbeloved rounds out the safe list by offering something most supermarket brands never quite manage: a straightforward hypoallergenic recipe built for daily feeding. The first thing you will spot on the label is a named meat meal. Turkey meal, for example, followed by rice and barley. That means the bulk of the protein comes from a single, clearly identified animal source, not a vague mix of byproducts or derivatives. There is no trace of wheat, soya, or dairy, making it a practical choice for cats with food sensitivities or owners who want to avoid common allergens. Artificial colorants and flavor enhancers do not make the cut either. The ingredient list is short, with each component spelled out in plain English. For cats with sensitive digestion, this simplicity can make all the difference. The formula is not ultra-high in meat like some specialty brands, but it is designed for balance and transparency. Enough animal protein to satisfy a carnivore's needs without packing in unnecessary fillers. For owners searching for a reliable everyday food that does not gamble with cheap grains or synthetic additives, James Wellbeloved stands out as a safer, more thoughtful option, affordable, accessible, and honest about what is inside each bowl. Across all 10 brands, one pattern stands out. Marketing often masks mediocrity. In the UK cat food aisle, familiar names rely on cheap fillers and artificial additives, while true quality is rare and hard-won. For pet owners, the real risk is not what is obvious, it is what is hidden on the label. Choosing wisely means protecting your cat where it matters most, their bowl. Let me know your biggest cat food surprise in the comments below.